Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Ibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to yapping.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week, usually at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But here this week, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time, because the Mets have a weird start time. The game is incredibly long. The game goes into extra innings. You're exhausted. I'm exhausted. My co-host is exhausted. The Mets are exhausted. But at least, as far as I know, neither me nor my co-host nor any of you watching this show right now have to get on a plane and fly from Southern Florida to New York City. So I guess that is a second win that we can take away as Mets fans here this afternoon and this evening. John Saponaro, live but barely alive from Burbank, California. And that means my co-host, Matt Ibanez, holding things down back in New Jersey, where it is, what, 4:30 in the morning at this point? I have no idea. This is a loaded question, Ibby, because a win is a win is a win. But how you feeling, man?
I'm feeling good, John, only from the standpoint that the team did walk away with the W there to salvage a series win, to head back home, like you said, to get on the plane, to get towards this home opener on Friday. But I got to tell you, man, that was, and I was saying it to some friends outside of this, outside of our normal Met content creator chat, watching the game as well. I'm just like, this is a chore to watch. I said it in the chat before. That was a chore of a game to get. I'm like, this game started at 4:40. It's 8:40 now. Like, what are we doing here? This is terrible. But all things considered, like you said, a win is a win is a win. You don't throw them back. You take it. You forget about it. You move forward. We'll talk about the road trip that was best as we can with the time that we have. But all that being said, Wednesday, still Wednesday. Red light still on. Red light still on. Let's do this. Let's have a show.
Let's get a couple things out of the way right away. Of course, a lot of you folks are watching this live on YouTube. You're watching it live on Twitter. That's the best way to become a full-fledged participant in the show. But the only way to be a subscriber on the show, or excuse me, a commenter on the show, is to subscribe to the channel. Other than that, this show, Till Mets Do Us Part, is free and available on YouTube, on Twitter. It's also available on Spotify, Apple, and all the places that you get your podcasts. I know over the last several weeks, last several months, you guys are used to us doing these 2-hour shows. The show started out, we did 45 minutes, then it became an hour. Slowly it became a 2-hour show, and that's become the norm. We ain't doing a 2-hour show today.
Can't do it today, guys. I'm sorry.
Ibby has children.
I
Okay,
can't do it, man.
Ibby has kids he has to take care of. No, in all seriousness, we're all tired. I think you guys are the real heroes for watching that game and then jumping over here and tuning into a show that I know you guys all like and you love watching us, and we appreciate that so much. There's almost 100 people in here already. It's much later on the East Coast than it normally is. I doubt we'll get any of our friends from over in the UK here today because it's the middle of the goddamn night. But we're not going to go too long. This is probably going to be an old school our show when it's all said and done. Quick roll call for the diehards that are here. We have Cindy, we have Charlie, we've got Brad in the house, Zero Cool, we have Armand, Jeff Cohen, Clink is here. Who else? Am I missing anybody? Odd Villain with the comment setting us off. Danny Young fucking sucks.
Wait, you know what? On that note, I'm just going to use this as my segue because it needs to be done, and we'll finish the roll call in a moment. But I had to do something really quick. I know I put out a tweet, but I figured I'd bring it to the show as well because it needed to be done. I can't with him, man. I'm watching that game. Guys, I'm dead serious here. I was going to text John, and I said to him off air just before that if they tied that game, I wasn't doing the show this week. I wasn't going to come on because I was like, there's no freaking way. If we're going to blow this game, no chance. Thankfully, we shut the door, but holy hell.
Yeah, and if you've been a listener for a long time or a viewer, and shout out to D, we have Will White here as well, Johnny Boy, Carlos Ramos, Dave Burnett. I don't want to miss anybody on the roll call here before we get too deep into the weeds. I think that might be it as far as commenters. Yes, it is. We got 100 folks here now, so I'm sure that number is going to continue to climb. But, Ibby, it's funny because if you've been a viewer of our show for a long time, you know that we try to be as clockwork as possible, 5:30 start time and a couple minutes late here or there, things happen. But when we're in season, we're kind of at the mercy of the New York Mets. I mean, we're not stupid. We want to watch the game. You want to watch the game. We're not going to go up against the game. So our other option was to try to do this show tomorrow. But unfortunately, Ibby has some engagements that he has to do tomorrow. Wasn't an option. So it was always just, hey, we're going to do this when the game is over. And he was about to tell me, he was like, man, if this game goes any longer, I'm not doing it. And I was like, I don't want to do it either, honestly. And look, obviously we love doing this show.
Of course.
We love, interacting with all the folks that are here in the chat and everything, but it's just games like this are so ugly. And we try not to be reactionary. We're a weekly show, but when a game ends and we jump right into it, kind of have to talk about what we just watched. And what we just watched was one of the ugliest displays of baseball that I have ever seen, certainly in a winning effort. And that just goes to show you a couple of things. One, the Marlins are really, 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 really bad. They're scrappy. They got some hungry players. They have some great athletic players. They're going to be a thorn in the side sometimes. But if you wear them down, and that's really what the Mets did, the Mets wore them down to a point where it was like, eventually the Mets, no matter how badly they're hitting or whatever the case is, no matter how bad Danny Young is, the Mets just have more good players than the Marlins. And eventually the Mets are going to break through and they're going to be the ones to take the win. But man, just such an ugly display of baseball by the New York Mets. And that's why I tweeted out what I did, Ibby, about halfway through the game, where it's like, look, on our bold prediction show last week, I said the Mets were going to win 94 games. I said the Mets were going to go to the playoffs. I'm not backing off of that. If anybody comes in here, and I like jump down some people's throat on Twitter and even in our group chat where people are like, oh, I'm worried about this season. It's like, dude, it's April 2nd. You can't be saying I'm worried about this season. I'm worried about this. I'm worried about that. If you're worried about something, respectfully, you need to get your head examined. But you could be annoyed because everybody, you, me, the people in the chat, the listeners, the viewers, you want to sit down and watch a baseball game. You want to have fun. And when a team is not hitting, the whole thing just seems like a chore. Yes. And this game just was annoying. And if they ever lost this game, I would have rathered there were no heroics. I would have rathered like they lose that game in the 11th inning or the 12th inning. I don't even care about the Pete Alonso home run. I'd rather he not hit it and the game ends ho-hum in the 9th. You lose 4-1 and you get out of here. And we all could just be like, that sucked. But Mets are coming home and we'll pick our heads up. So there's not a tremendous amount to take away from this particular game that we all just got done watching in terms of positives. The two things that I'll point out as I toss it over to you is Pete Alonso looks damn good at the plate. Mm-hmm. He's not chasing. He's not lunging. He looks like the Pete Alonso from 2 years ago and 3 years ago. And the Mets pitching in the bullpen and even in the starting rotation has been very, very, very good. You look at what Senga did yesterday. I know maybe you hope he picks up Lindor. He couldn't quite do it, whatever. But even Holmes today, he pitched so much better than his final line would indicate that he pitched. And so those will be the positives that I take away from this game, is that Holmes was good and Alonso looks excellent.
Say what Holmes cut the walks in half from first start to second start, 4-2, which is always great. Yeah, you don't want to see him working so deep into counts, 2-2 counts, 3-2 counts. That's why his pitch count got as high as that's why he only gave us 4 2/3. So I think those things will self-correct in time. I think he's getting better, and he will continue to get better as the season goes on. But like you said, Pete is the one guy right now that is absolutely dialed in every one of his at-bats. It just seems like he's on the ball. He did a great job, this series, this game in general, to put the team on his back and really essentially carry us or put us into a spot at least to be victorious. But yeah, it's games like this where it sucks, man. It sucks because you look at this team, we talk so much about the offense, and this is about the whole road trip in general. You look at the offense and it's like, man, it's just the annoying part, to bring it back to what you said before, the annoying part, not worried. The annoying part is the fact that it's happening again when you bring in new pieces and you're hoping that you can get a little bit of a quicker start so you can avoid the noise and the nonsense that is going to come with being a Mets fan in general. If things start off slow, people talk, but also the more the volume is cranked up to 1,000 now because you have a Juan Soto, you spent $1 billion and all this stuff. So you wanted to get off to a quicker start. And the fact that it's not happening, that's the frustration. It's like, man, I just want to start off hot. Can we start off like 4-1? Can we get things rolling? Can it not be everyone slumping at the same exact time? Can it be a little bit more space? Can it be more than just one guy? Like, that's kind of where we are right now. And to what you said before about the pitching in general, like when it came to Senga yesterday, the stuff was there. The ghost fork, as you said during the Til Mets Morning Minute, electric. Everything there was great. It just sucks that the one time Lindor decides to have an off day defensively, it costs us the game. It's like, I'm not going to jump down.
Only the fourth time in his career he's had 2 errors in a game. I mean, we all know how good Lindor is defensively, and it happens.
Well, it happens, and I love the fact that they both picked each other up after the fact. Like, I need to make that play for Senga. Senga goes, that guy's bailed me out so much. I should have bailed him out this time. So I love the team aspect and still sticking together in that sense. We've always talked about how great this clubhouse seems to be and how together they are as a team, as a single unit. So all in all, it's annoying. The frustration comes, for me at least, from the offensive standpoint. I really thought that things would carry over a little bit better to start, and we can get off to a hot start, and it's not there. So I'm thankful to be at what we are in terms of record. But overall, it's the pitching, man. The pitching is what has been the spark for me, the interest of me to this point, minus Danny Young.
Yeah, and you alluded to it a bit, and I just want to mention it to plug it for the sake of plugging it. The Til Mets Morning Minute is something that Ibby and I had talked about starting a couple months ago, and then it kind of went through a few different iterations before we landed on, hey, what if, since I'm on the West Coast and it's a little easier for me with the time and everything of these games, if I do a morning recap, it's just a 60-second recap of the game, the most important thing to me, or the most important thing objectively that happened in the game, the thing that I want to highlight. And it's been pretty well received so far, and it is available wherever it is that you guys listen to us. We've been putting it out here as YouTube Shorts because it's super appropriate for that. We've been putting it out on TikTok and on Instagram as Reels. I've even been putting it out on the Twitter account as well. And the cool feature on Spotify, they now allow video podcasts. And so I've been putting it out as a video podcast, even though it's just 60 seconds long or less, each and every single day. So, I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware of it, but if you're not, it's just this little digestible bit that we wanted to do to kind of add a little bit of content that obviously helps us out as far as the algorithm is concerned, but it's another fun thing for me to do during this time. And it's another way that you guys can digest Til Mets Do Us Part. And like right on cue, Jeff Cohen was saying John's Mets morning minute tomorrow morning will take 10 minutes. If you think that I can talk about this game for 10 minutes, you're out of your damn mind, Jeff. I cannot. There's absolutely
maybe it's going to be him sleeping for 10 minutes, but it's not going to be him talking for 10 minutes. That's for sure.
Jeff said this to me on Twitter, and I just sent him back. I said alternatively, and I sent him a gif of somebody drinking bleach, because I was just like, or and hear me out on this. How about that? Shout out to Zero Cool saying press the like button, peeps. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I use that as a segue for Zero Cool, because Zero says, I loved this game in all caps. Winning a crisp 6-2 game is easy. Winning a drag out, sloppy, stupid looking game is what builds character. I disagree, Ibby, with the loving of the game, but there you go. Building character since 1962. I disagree with loving this game. I hated this game. This game was like having like a root canal while also having bamboo shoots shoved up all your fingernails at the same time. So I disagree with that point from Zero, but I will say that bad teams lose this game. Underachieving teams lose this game. Mm-hmm. Teams that are good, teams with talent, and I said this kind of in the open, the Mets are better than the Marlins. The Marlins are very, very, very bad. They're going to be a very bad baseball team. They're going to be even worse after they trade Sandy, all that stuff. You have to find a way to win it. And that's why I tweeted out towards the end of the game, I said, just fucking win. And then I quote tweeted myself and said, look, it doesn't matter what the box score is going to be ugly for everybody. Just win the game.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. Because I do agree with the second part of this from Zero Cool, where winning a drag out, sloppy, stupid game is what builds character. And it does, because now the Mets get to fly home and enjoy the off day and enjoy the home opener as a 3-3 team that has won one series on the road, lost one series on the road. Quite frankly, they played badly enough to be, 1-5 at this point.
Yeah,
so,
I would agree.
Last year, they opened the season 0-5. So, it's not about how you start. It is how you finish. We learned that in the ultimate way last year. But also all these games matter. And it is nice when you mention new cast of characters. Juan Soto comes in. You know what the conversation's going to be if you're the Mets and you don't get off to a good start. Well, you know what? 3-3 is a good start. I'll take it. You beat the Marlins in a series that you should beat them in. You lost to the Astros. You probably had a chance to sweep that series with a couple hits here and there, but it didn't go your way. The Astros are a great team. Will they be diminished? I don't know. It is what it is. But 3-3, I'll take it. Enjoy the off day. Exhale.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the couple things that we learned definitely on this road trip was it's probably premature for a lot of people to write off Houston because they've had such changeover and they've lost a lot of big names. They traded some guys that they're going a little bit younger. Some question marks are still there for that team, but you play in Houston and that place is built for playoff atmosphere baseball, which I kind of felt like that felt like to me, at least, when they were playing those games, because it's a place that, expects excellence and they've had so much success for the last decade that writing off a team like that isn't just going to happen overnight. So it was a tough series. They definitely could have done a lot better. I wanted them to get off to a faster start. But again, I think this series with Miami was more so, it's like, this is supposed to be the get right series. And I'm glad you took 2 of 3, but it's like, it was ugly. And it was, and to Zero Cool's point, like I get the whole, when it's ugly and you win, it's great because you did it. Like I get that wholeheartedly in football and stuff like that. Like, I don't care, just get the win. I wanted the win today. I'm not saying I didn't want the win. We don't throw wins back. We take anything we can get, but it was rough. It was rough, but I'm happy. I'm very happy that they're going home with what they have. Let's try and take this breather, like John said. Let's get things rolling a little bit. Hopefully, the fact that Pete did what he did kind of carries over and it can spark everyone else. We can kind of get off the schneid a little bit. We can get things rolling, specifically at the top. We know Frankie needs to get rolling. Like once he gets moving, we know that the entire lineup gets moving. I'm not here to talk about the slumps and the 2 months and like other people are starting to talk about already. I'm not here to do that, and I'm not going to do that. He'll break out soon enough. He always does. But obviously, it's still I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It still seems relevant to this point that when Lindor goes, everyone goes. And I think when you have someone like a Soto now, especially, it's like Soto becomes this engine for the entire team that people thought, oh my God, when you get an engine like this, like your car is going to run that much better. It's like, okay, that's all well and good, but I still got to turn the ignition. I can't show this off if I don't have it started. And I think that that's what Lindor is as the starter. So when you have that moving and he's getting on, and then you have Soto, who's, he's still getting on base and creating things, that creates more opportunities for a guy like Pete who's locked in. And then that creates more runs. It's like, once that gets going, I think that's when the lineup starts moving. And I'm hopeful that with the homestand that we're about to have, that Lindor can get things moving.
And with respect to anybody who feels this way, on this show, if you've been listening to us and watching us for a while, we try very hard not to be reactionary, which is difficult at times because baseball is played every day and it is a reactionary sport. And especially, again, when you're going to record right after a game that was as ugly as the game we just watched, even though the Mets won, it's easy to spend an hour and just talk about that game. That's why we try to get our feelings on that specific game out of the way. And then we can move on with the week that was, which is what this show, really at its core during the season is recapping the, 5-6 games that the Mets have played over the course of the last week. So I bring that up to say, with respect, we are not going to be entertaining on April 2nd. If you're listening to this on the audio side, probably April 3rd, we're not going to be entertaining lineup changes. We're not going to be entertaining where guys are hitting and whether or not Juan Soto is better suited to hit 2 or 3. And if it's too early to discuss moving Lindor out of the leadoff, we're not doing that.
Not doing that.
That is not a conversation for today. That stuff evolves over time. You've already seen, a quick hook, if you will, with just sliding down Vientos a spot because he's looked a little out of sorts. We'll talk about Vientos later. The manager's going to make those decisions in concert with the front office and the GM and, everything like that. We're not going to entertain that kind of stuff. Now, there are some things we can talk about with regards to Vientos. Like I said, we'll get into him in a little bit. There's some stuff we could talk about with Brett Beatty. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But these are players that don't have a massive track record to lean on. So when you look at a guy like Lindor, I'm not entertaining it. I don't care. I'm not entertaining Soto. I'm not entertaining any of these conversations. It's just not the time to have that conversation. So if you throw that out in the comments, you feel free to do that. Interact with, the other people who are here in the chat. It's just not something that me and Ibby are going to do at this point. Rosie K says, this team starts slow. They can't afford to do that this year. But I would argue, Ibby, they kind of can because the Braves have started slower than them. So sometimes, it's not about what you're doing. It's what the other teams are doing. Philly is kind of taking care of business. They're playing pretty well, but, they're not like on this undefeated run that the Dodgers or the Padres are on. So, look, sometimes you can afford to start slow because other people start slower. And, that's a factor.
I would say again, to bring it back to the annoying nature and the frustration, it really comes down to when you see a team like Atlanta start 0-6. I always talk, and I have talked about since day one on this show, that it's always about finding these nooks and crannies in the season to create space and take advantage of opportunities that are happening, beyond you. And I would like more space, even though where we are is fine based off of everything that's gone on and how we've hit and things like that. You'll take the record that we have, but yeah, when the Braves are 0-6, me personally, I would like a little bit more space because I do not believe in any, I will not speak ill of the Braves. I will not speak ill of anything because they too, as a lineup, top to bottom, are just not hitting right now. But once they start hitting, these are the same assholes that are going to end up going on another 750 win percentage streak, and they're going to win 20 out of the next 30 games, and it's ridiculous.
That's what Rosie says, right? Right as you said it. I don't think they will. I don't buy their demise, by the way. I'm not trying to say that. It's obviously way too early. That's insane. But I don't think they have a 750 ball, in them kind of stretch like they did a couple years ago. I just think that that's a stretch regardless of how good your team is, that you just kind of get on. I don't want to say once in a lifetime, but you know what I mean. Like once in a collection of players on a team where you get off on a run like that, where, I mean, the Braves, they didn't lose, man. Like,
something like that is fleeting. That's not normal.
Yeah. I don't want to relitigate, 3 seasons ago, but the Mets were playing like 675 baseball and the Braves caught them and passed them. That's insane. That's an insane
it's unheard
concept
of
when you think about it. We have a super chat from Zero Cool that I'll get to coming up next. Thank you for the super chat.
Thank you so much, Zero.
Though, up first says, you guys are saying everything we feel and how rough it's been, but I'll take the glass half full approach. It's because we have very high expectations for this team. We know what the possibilities are. I think that's fair. I think
fair
that's
too.
A fair thought process.
I do.
Zero Cool using the super chat, and thank you for the $5 super chat.
Thank you so much, Zero.
To further Zero Cool's own point, which I think is a fair one, saying, what's the most famous game in Mets history? It's the Bill Buckner game in the 86 World Series. Was that a clean game? Obviously it was not. I will answer the rhetorical question. Games that tear your guts out are by far the most memorable. Not wrong. It's impossible.
Not wrong. That game is also, a World Series game. I'll take anything in a setting like that, as opposed like this one. It's like, I guess it's because we know that we have, 150, whatever it is, 157, 56 more games to go. It's like, there's a lot. Yeah. And I know everything matters and everything, and it's only April, but you can't win in April, but you can lose, like all this stuff. I get what you're saying wholeheartedly, and I appreciate the super chat. Yes, in games like that, I do not care how you win, just win the game. But it is just, it's tiring during the season where it's like, you come home from a long day of work, you want to sit down and watch a game, and then all of a sudden it's like there's not the same hype for a game in April against the Marlins in a dead place like Miami, where there's nobody there, there's no energy in the park. It's just like, you feel what you want. There was a lot more energy in the park for Houston because they love what they're watching. And then you feel that through the television. So it's like, you feel a little bit different about the game, win or lose. But when it comes to Miami, man, I just feel like when we face the Fish in general, I always feel like it's just very like, and it's because there's nothing to them. And you should beat them. And it's like, when we don't, it's like, I feel that we play down because there's such a lack of energy that it's just like, you're going through the motions because you want to get the hell out of there. But it's like, you still got a game to win. Like that, like it's all encompassing. But either way, you are right, Zero. I just think that the style of game that we're talking about, World Series versus this, is a little bit different.
Yeah. And I'll put it into context of a baseball scenario, right? Like in the playoffs, in the World Series especially, you play like there's no tomorrow. Your starter comes out, after pitching an inning and a third, if they don't look right, and you go right to your bullpen, and then you pitch your closer in the 5th inning, and you try to, like, you don't do that on April 2nd because it doesn't matter as much. And that's a tangible example, but it's just like, you don't want to see this kind of baseball on April 2nd. I also think the other part of it too, not only are the stakes not as high, obviously, but there's the games that make you sweat and tear your guts out, like the game that Zero's talking about here, game 6 of the 86 World Series. And then there's just games that are so horribly played that they make you wish you weren't a fan of the sport. And that's borderline what we watched today. It'd be like, I've seen better defense on a slow pitch softball field than what's
the defense
today. Like,
the defense has been so frustrating.
Abysmal.
Yeah.
So,
the defense in general.
Yeah, and look, again, great comment from Zero, and I understand the larger point, and I don't even disagree, and I don't even think you can argue the larger point, but it's just like, man, that was just rough. This game for me, it just felt like I was getting beat up. Like the whole time I was watching it, I was like, oh my God. This was me. Like if I had a camera on me for like 90% of the game, I was watching it like just leaning on my hand. Like, could we do something, anything?
Well, we will note that we'll make sure we put this down, that when we finally do a a live stream of us like watching the game with everyone. But once we decide to pick a game, we will make sure that it is not against the Marlins. I don't care if it's at City or in my, like, we are not doing a Mets Marlins watch along. We're not, we won't, that I will say no to that. Anybody else, I am not doing a Mets Marlins watch along. I won't do it.
Yeah. Daniel Cap saying it wouldn't be a Mets game without anxiety. And I think this is a perfect time for you to show off that mug again, Ibby.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Building character since 1962. All right. So we're at 30 minutes, which normally is only a quarter of the way through the show. But here today, if you're just joining us late, we're going to do a little bit of an abridged version because, quite frankly, it's late and we're all kind of exhausted. So let's head into the break. When we come out, we have a lot of meaningful things to talk about with regards to the pitching lab, some of the pitching performances that we've seen individually. Shout out Matt Kranick. We already touched on Pete Alonso. I don't think we need to dive in too much on him, but he's just been phenomenal. We could talk a little bit about Luis Torrens, and then we have to talk about the bad, Ibby, because there has been some bad. I think it's really worth mentioning a little bit right now about Mark Vientos and Brett Beatty. Not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, but I think a conversation needs to be had on both of those people. So don't go anywhere. It is just a quick 30-second ad spot that we need for the audio version of this show. It's John Saponaro. It's Matt Ibby Ibanez. It is Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter. We will be right back. Yo, just like that, we are back with Til Mets Do Us Part, live on YouTube, live on Twitter, like we are each and every single week. And of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, turn your notifications on so that you know when we are going live. You'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. And then if you join us for the live stream as a subscriber, you will be able to take part in the live chat, which has become such an important part of this show. When it started out, it was just me and Ibby talking into the void, talking to each other. And then little by little, it grew into the live stream that it is now. And you guys are such an important part of it. But the only way to make sure that your comments are seen is to subscribe on the YouTube channel, which is appropriately called Til Mets Do Us Part. If you miss any of the show, you can also go back on that same YouTube channel and watch whatever you missed, whether you get here late or you have to leave early, because it lives forever on that YouTube channel once we're done with the live stream. And if you can't do any of that, this is free and available. The show, that is, on all of your audio platforms where you get podcasts as well. Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify, few more places, but I think most people are pretty much set with those three. If you're listening on like pod.us.org.gov.gop or whatever.
We do have some weird ones. We do.
We do, because
we do have some weird ones.
Like, I just want to know who the hell is listening to their podcast on that, and how many viruses are on your computer on average. Ibby, before we get back into the conversation, the Mets are coming off of a win, ugly win, but a win is a win. Series win. So we spent a lot of the first half talking about some negative. I want to transition into a lot of the positives here in the second half before we end on a little bit of a what's going on with a couple players. But before we do that, let's get in a quick word from our friends over at Independent Safes.
Absolutely, John. IndependentSafes.com. Independent Safes are protecting homes and businesses with secure residential and commercial safes, fireproof peace of mind in every corner. Visit IndependentSafes.com today for security that stands strong. And I think everybody knows who's going in the safe today.
Everybody knows.
It's Danny Young, my brother. I'm putting you in the smallest safe. Just going to fold you up, put you in there, and I'm just going to throw that thing as far as I possibly can. No key, locked away, just done. I'm sorry. I know it's early, but the early returns, not for me. I'm hoping Danel Nunez is, feeling good, and he's performed well so far in the minors. Hopefully he's on the fast track to getting here, because I think we all know who's getting that one-way ticket out of the 26-man, that being Danny Young. So Independent Safes, $99, free shipping. Tell them Til Mets sent you. They'll take care of you. Just don't mention Danny Young. They might take away the free shipping. Don't mention Danny Young.
In all seriousness, I think we all understood. You and I predicted Danny Young was going to be on the roster. He had a good spring. He was good in moments last year. He was out of options, 2 lefties. There's a lot of
two lefties, yeah,
that you could apply to having Danny Young on this team. The Daniel Nunez not being 100% ready to go, like full tilt in a major league, like caliber bullpen where you can pitch him on back-to-back days. That was also a factor. I understand it, but you're right. Like Nunez can't get here soon enough. And if it's not Nunez, if there's a little bit of a slope, I mean, it'd be the first pitcher out of here is going to be Danny Young. And it's at the point now, and I know this is really, really, really quick, but it's at the point now. If Paul Blackburn's ready, you're putting Paul Blackburn on the roster. Like
I agree.
None of these people that are waiting in the wings are like, honestly, I know it's not going to happen. We didn't talk about Sean Manaea yet, but like Sean Manaea gets the setback. If Sean Manaea was coming back tomorrow, Danny Young's probably out and then somebody else is going to the bullpen. Maybe it's Canning, maybe it's Tyler. I don't know. But like, I just think that he's the one out no matter what right now, because he's been that bad. He's not pitching with confidence and he's not pitching effectively. You know, he gets into 2 of these games against the Marlins and he looks, quite frankly, horrendous in both of them, that we're hanging on by our fingernails, not even our fingertips, our nails we're hanging on by a thread in this game where it's like, man, just come out and throw strikes.
It's crazy because, like I said, it's so early to have such feelings towards a player. But when everyone else is performing at the level that they have, it's very easy to point out the weak link. And right now it's him. And it's just like, if someone is ready, if someone gets healthy enough and there's got to be a move to be made, it's going to be him. And I think it's clear as day. And I think that this team is, more than comfortable with only having the one lefty, since it's what's always been, the entire MO of this team is only having one. To Ant Rivera's point over at Subway to Shea, always wants 2 lefties, but as he said in the comments before on the funny meme that I put out, he goes, look, I would love 2 lefties, because someone was saying, 2 lefties is a great idea. He goes, I would love 2 lefties. It's always been my thing I always talk about, but I want good lefties, and that's not Danny Young. So it's understanding that, yes, the idea is great, but the idea has to also provide execution, and that's just not, it's not working. And I think he's going to get a fast track ticket out of here.
And look, I like 2 lefties as well. If you want to have 3 lefties, you want to have good pitchers. That's at the end of the day, what it comes down to. Especially in the bullpen, I always preach this, Ibby. I say it on the show all the time. You got to have good stuff. And I'm not sure that Danny Young has good stuff. That's the thing. Guys with good stuff are going to get people out. Yes. Would you rather have, AJ Minter facing Bryce Harper? Probably. But I've got a lot of faith in a guy like Jose Butto, who's got good stuff. I've got a lot of faith in Max Kranick, who clearly has very good stuff. Huascar Brazaban's got a lot of movement on his pitches. Like, these guys have plus stuff. Like, they can get out a lefty. And I think when you start to think about where baseball is, and I know this is a rule that's been in effect for several years now, but the 3-batter minimum kind of negates the absolute need for having 2 lefties, because you're not mixing and matching situationally anymore. Danny Young's a good situational lefty. He reminds me of he's a bit of a dinosaur in that regard, where, he doesn't have plus stuff, but he's got a lot of movement. He's got a weird arm angle. So, he'll get guys out, lefties out in front, because he'll kind of dazzle them with the way he comes over and throws the ball and all that stuff. But you saw today, I mean, he walked, I forgot the guy's name, because they have like 100 rookies on their team. But one of the lefties that he was brought in to face, Danny Young, he walked him in that last inning. So, I'd rather just have a guy who's going to be out there and throw strikes and be used effectively than necessarily having that second lefty. But let's talk about the guy that D says is a blessing. That's Max Kranick. Cindy also saying has been outstanding. Ibby, I talked about this on the Til Mets Morning Minute a couple days ago, where, the Mets have this arsenal they can deploy with Brazaban and Butto and Kranick. I guess that was this morning's, where they can really bring in these guys who have plus stuff, who can pitch multiple innings in high leverage. So this is not your, Trevor Williams longman kind of person. This is a guy who can come in all three of them and pitch late and close games and give you something that is very, very, very important to have. And I think it's going to save the bullpen when you have Buto pitch 2 innings, then you'll get a day off or two, but then you've got Kranick, you can go to him, and you can really do a lot in terms of mixing and matching. Buto's been great. Huascar Brazoban gets his first save of his career today, closing out the game against his old team. That's fantastic. But Max Kranick comes in his first major league appearance since 2022, pitching for his childhood team with the bases loaded and 1 out. Oh, by the way, go get out Yordan Alvarez and Christian Walker. And he does. And then in his second appearance, he comes into the game yesterday and he pitches 3 perfect innings.
Lights
on
out.
22 pitches.
Efficiency.
17 for strikes. I mean, he has been, you want to talk about guys not being able to translate the spring training numbers, and we'll talk about that later, but he has been exactly that. He looked great in spring. He looked like he was a guy who had turned a corner. The Mets opened up the door for him to make the team. He makes the team, and he has been as advertised.
And I'm going to bring this comment up from D, who just posted it just now, saying that Kranick looks so calm and cool. And I had been saying that, during spring, I thought that he was someone that had the composure. He looked like he was in control on the mound. And I go, that's the stuff I look for. I don't care if it's in the spring. You can still tell a lot from the spring in terms of how a person handles themselves. I know that sometimes the results do not translate. Like John said, we will talk about that for some other players. But with Kranick, I mean, it's hard to put down coming into that spot in Houston, because for me, at least, Yordan Alvarez in Houston, in that spot, bases loaded, Yordan Alvarez to me is like, I've said this for years now, like a modern day David Ortiz, in my opinion, when it comes to presence at the plate, the control of the plate that he has, the power that he has, his ability to hit all fields, like everything about him. I put him in such high regard when it comes to a guy that you want to, if you could pick a guy to be in a spot, like my two have always been like Soto and Yordan Alvarez. Like those are my two guys. If I need a guy to get a hit in a spot, power or whatever, those two guys are right there. So for him to come into that spot, get the out, big pop up, and then to go after someone like Christian Walker, who's having a decent game, who's hitting the ball hard, gets him out. Like, it's a huge spot. Then to be asked to throw 3 innings yesterday, does it efficiently. Like I said during the spring, that this is someone that we could look to at some point to be a high leverage guy. I still believe that. I know the early returns, or I'm not trying to get too high on the early returns, but I love what I see so far. And hopefully, to John's point, when you have these pieces that you can move back and forth, give guys rest, hopefully it can allow for guys to not get burned out, because the last thing I think any of us want to see is for someone like Kranick to have the same trajectory and output that someone like Reed Garrett had last year, where he was a revelation at the start of the year, and then he really struggled because he was burnt out, and then he kind of rediscovered it at the end once he got that energy back. I don't want to see that for Kranick. Hopefully we can see him be a little bit more consistent so he's not burnt out throughout the season.
Well, I think when you look at a guy like Kranick, obviously his skill set is just different. The way Buto's is different from a guy like Reed Garrett. And Gary Cohen mentioned it on the broadcast when Reed Garrett came into the game. They said that how the Mets kind of burnt him out a bit last year because he was pitching all of these innings because he was the only guy. Remember, Edwin Diaz had his ups and downs. He also found himself on the injured list kind of early. So Reed Garrett was the only guy in the bullpen for a stretch. So he was pitching so much. And I think Gary nailed it when he said, this is the spot the Mets want to use Reed Garrett in, which is come in the game with, in a non-clean inning, a dirty inning, guys on base, because he's got strikeout stuff. He's a little wild sometimes, which does scare you in terms of coming in with men on base, but he's got wipeout, strikeout stuff. And then, if he gets you out of a jam with 2 outs, then you can pitch him in the next inning and he can give you kind of 4 outs instead of looking to him to give you 6 outs and, all these extra. I think he's a different kind of reliever. I think Reed Garrett is a bit of he's a throwback reliever in a lot of ways. He's the guy who really should pitch one inning and maybe he can give you an extra out here or there, or he's the guy who's going to come into a game in the 6th inning that's close and get you 2 outs, walking the tightrope, and then you take him out of the game and you give somebody else the next clean inning. I think that's Reed Garrett's role. I think that's when Reed Garrett should be deployed, and I think that'll keep him fresh. But using Kranick in the multiple inning role, using Buto and Brazoban in this multiple inning role, I think it's going to allow them to let these other guys be who they are, and let Stanek be the guy who comes in the 8th inning, and let Minter be the guy who comes in the 8th inning. And, you use Diaz, and you don't have to push Diaz until the season is winding down and you need to get saves. We know Diaz can pitch multiple innings if he has to, down the stretch, but you don't want to be doing that at this point in the season, obviously, not just with Diaz, but with anybody. But these guys who are converted starters, it really, really works. And I know that's, Buto's MO, that's Kranick's MO, not so much Brazoban, although I guess technically all these guys kind of start as starters, you know what I mean? But, there's just something there that the Mets have unlocked, and I think other teams are going to copy it. I really do. And somebody said to me online, aren't teams already trying to do that? But I think the Mets, David Stearns is putting an emphasis on these guys. I don't think it's by accident that the Mets have 3 guys with plus stuff that aren't mop-up guys that can go multiple innings. I think there's a method to the madness. I'm not saying it's easy to find, but I think David Stearns looked for them and he found them. And I think you look at it, outside of Jose Buto, the other 2 guys came from out of the organization. So this isn't like, let's take a guy who's been an up and down starter in the minors and a cup of coffee starter here in Buto and make him a long reliever. They identified and went and got Max Kranick. They identified and went and got Huáscar Brazoban. So I think there's something to be said about Stearns hunting these guys.
And I think to further your point, I think when you have a game that is ever evolving where, guys or teams are lucky at this point, outside of a couple of pitches like we've hit on before, that can go 6-7 innings. If you're going to be getting 4 to 5 innings out of some back end stars or what have you, it's important to have multiple guys like that can go 2 innings to further get you through these games so they're not burnt out. So then you have another guy in the back end for tomorrow or the following day. So, it's almost as if you want multiple of these guys, and it's hard to do because you're trying to almost piggyback in some spots, even though that's not the plan to do it. But on the off chance where, a Clay Holmes is a converted reliever back to starter, he's struggling a little bit with the amount of pitches that he's throwing. So when he only goes 4 2/3, it's great to have multiple guys that can go 2 innings behind him. And then you don't have to worry about, burning that guy out in case something happens the next day because you have somebody else that can do it as well. And then we can keep on going back and forth to keep guys fresh. But I think it was it Jeff in the comments? To Jeff's point, like we always say, being the old school, the stars need to go longer. We all want that. We would love to get a solid 6 innings from our starters, but I think this is also Stearns protecting himself. When you choose to build the staff the way that he has, by having guys like this, it protects him because he's not sure if he's going to get what he wants. Does he want the guys that he got to give him 6 innings? Of course he does. 7 innings, 8 innings? Of course he does. But I think he also knows that if I have these guys on the back end, it protects my investment and allows these things to actually play out in my favor and work in case, they happen to have an off day.
Yeah, and Carlos answering Jeff, and I think he's spot on here when he says, Jeff, you read my mind, but I've learned to give up on that. To be honest, it's just not how they want to do it anymore. And I think that's part of it too. And look, there are certain guys that are going to do it. But again, when you build the rotation the way Stearns wants to build the rotation and not spend a tremendous amount of money on these guys who, have done probably their best work for somebody else. And now you got to give them $250, $300 million to come here at 31, 32 years old. I'm not sure that that's the way you're going to want to do things.
Got to build from within. You need to create your own. That's what you have to do.
You have to. And, there's other times where you can maybe identify something like, I keep looking at a guy like, if the Mets could ever pull off a trade for Sandy Alcantara, that's a different situation because obviously he has some team control. He's on a team friendly deal and things like that. But, maybe that's why a guy in the offseason, depending on how this goes, like Michael King kind of stands out to me because he's a guy like Holmes who is a converted reliever. Now he's also, 29, 30 years old when he hits free agency, but he's a guy who doesn't have a tremendous amount of innings, also doesn't have this tremendous track record as a starter that you're paying for, where you have to give him, Corbin Burns money or Steven Strasburg money or, Max Scherzer money. You're not going into these crazy $300 million deals for a 30-something-year-old pitcher. You're going into, maybe I'll give him, maybe it's a $125 or $150 million or something like that, where you're like, okay, I could stomach that move for a guy who doesn't have a lot of innings on his arm. And he also doesn't have this tremendous track record as a starter. So there is some risk involved, but I could also save $150 million by investing in that guy. So, you just have to think about this big picture. Speaking of pitchers, Carlos Ramos saying, can we give a special shout out to David Peterson, please? Look good, got out of trouble, delivered some unexpected Ks. This is what I will say.
9 strikeouts, baby. 9 strikeouts.
Yeah, Ibby, I've not been a big time David Peterson fan. I think that he's done a lot with smoke and mirrors. And I even last year in what was his best season, a lot of the peripheral numbers didn't, paint a pretty picture for him.
No, should have been higher numbers, but yeah, you're right.
But confidence is confidence. And he pitched with a tremendous amount of confidence in the playoffs for us in big spots. And he pitched like a confident, different kind of pitcher in his first start. And I just think maybe he is turning a corner. It does take a little longer for lefty starters traditionally to come around. And this is a guy who got thrust into action in 2020. This is a guy who dealt with injuries. So, listen, David Peterson has good stuff. I don't think he's going to become an ace, but if this is what David Peterson is, which is like a good 3, that's great, because again, we see how expensive pitching is. And I think David Peterson might be a good 3.
Yeah, I would say I would float back between like a 3-4, depending on the staff that you're constructing. But yeah, I think he finally understands who he is. And I think a lot of times when you have that first round pedigree, and I think when you're a pitcher taken in the first round, that everyone automatically assumes that you're going to be this superstar, this starter, this ace type. It's not what he is. And I don't think, like you say, I don't think he needs to be that. Would we like him to be? Of course you do. But I think after all these years, you kind of see the type of pitcher that he is. And if he settles in to be a consistent on the high end 90th percentile type of 3 starter, most likely finishing more as a 4 starter, I think that that's fine, because he goes out there, he's established a rhythm. I think, what was it? He got was it the hip that he got fixed? I think once that happened, I think it unlocked something for him as well with his delivery. I just think that he finally has a rhythm that works for him. The results are there. I expect him to continue. When he's on the mound first now, I have confidence. It is great that he had the strikeouts. Now, I'm assuming I'm going to take that. I'm not going to run with that too much, mainly because it's Miami. So I'm not going to go with it, too crazily there. But hopefully moving forward, the strikeouts can be a little bit more consistent and not so much on the low end of like 2 to 3. Maybe we can continue to get like 6, 7 strikeouts an outing. That'd be great. But I think he just knows who he is. And I think that that's a good thing for the Mets to have, when you know that you have a guy that goes out there, they play strong defense behind him every time. And I know that, like Carson's in the comments, I know that sometimes we make jokes about that. It's like, oh my God, they don't play defense for anyone else, but when it comes to Peterson, they're catching the ball with their teeth and all this nonsense. It's like, either way, sometimes that does happen. Like when a guy has a good rhythm and it keeps everyone on their toes and they're ready to go, it's like once the ball's hit them, it kind of just happens that way. That's, to borrow the line, that's baseball, Susan. And that's exactly what it is. So all in all, shout out to David Peterson. I love what I've seen so far, and hopefully we can continue this, because we're going to need him.
You know what, Ibby, we're already at 53 minutes. I have a feeling we're going to go a little over an hour, just because there's some stuff that we have to get to, but I'm going to try to keep us as on task as possible to not go too long, just because there's a lot of other things I want to get to for this week. One of them that we can touch on really quickly, also from Carlos Ramos, saying, if Torrens keeps this up, it's going to be impossible to take him out of the lineup when Alvey is back. I will use that as the jumping off point to say Torrens was, alongside of Alonso, the MVP of this game that we watched today. He didn't even start the game. He came in, had that unbelievable tag on what was a horrendous throw by Beatty, then gets the runner out, then gets the base hit in front of Alonso. He was in the mix every step of the way. Torrens has been great, but I would throw out a little bit of caution to a comment like this from Carlos Ramos. Alvarez is the guy. Luis Torrens might be the best backup catcher in baseball, but he's a backup catcher. He's great defensively. He has a killer arm. It's a great asset to have. He's going to get hot with the bat. That's what he does. He gets hot and he hits some doubles and hits a couple home runs. He's doing that right now when we need him the most. That's the most important thing. But the longer he plays, he will get exposed offensively.
Yes.
So when Alvarez comes back, Alvarez is the guy. It will be easy to take Torrens out of the lineup. No disrespect to Torrens.
No, not at all. But like you said, he was fantastic today. That throw to second to nail him, and I think it was Game for War saying here, give a shout out to the catchers. The Mets are finally throwing out runners at second base. It was awesome. Look, he did a fantastic job of bailing Beatty out on that throw as well. Still debatable if he was out or safe, but close. They gave a call.
I think
went
he was out.
way.
And I'm not just saying that. I think when they showed the one angle, his hand was up, and I thought, and maybe the Mets got helped by black glove on black sleeve.
Yeah.
But you didn't see any space in between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, and I'm not just saying this because I wanted the call to go this way, but the whole time I didn't think they were going to overturn it. But I was like, I see his hand in the air and I see his arm. I see the glove on his arm. And I thought he was out. I didn't, but I was shocked that they overturned it because I thought they were going to go with the chalk, not enough evidence to overturn it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
I thought called safe on the field. I thought it was bang, bang play, too close, called one way already. We're going to stick with it. That's what I thought. Either way, great job of recovery to put down the tag and then, of course, to throw to second. And like you said, didn't even start the game, comes in the right spot. I know they were joking on the radio side because I was in the car at the time. Sanger rips the double, and it's like, thanks, kid, but we're taking you out of the game. And he's like, sometimes that's baseball where it's a rough business, but it was the right call. Torrens comes in, does his thing, and is a big part of the overall win. So yeah, shout out to Luis Torrens because he has been phenomenal. Like we said on the show during the spring, we're not that worried because we were confident that Torrens would be able to do the job from a 5 days of 5 to 6 days out of the week standpoint. And then with Sanger behind him, we thought that, defensive type catcher who knows the staff, that the Mets were going to be okay when it came to the catching position, and the early returns seem to be proving that.
Yeah. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but there is a situation where you have Torrens kind of catching the bulk of the games right now. And when Alvarez comes back, maybe you try to offset that by throwing him right in and let him catch the bulk of the games before you kind of even them off and do a little bit more of a, what you would see from a starting catcher and a backup catcher. Because, look, Sanger's a great story. He's a great defensive catcher, but I don't think that he's going to hit enough to justify being in these games a lot. You don't want to burn out Torrens, and you also don't want to burn out Alvarez when Torrens gets back. Maybe there's a situation where for a short amount of time in the overlap, the Mets keep 3 catchers. I don't know. It does limit them in terms of what they can do in terms of, roster movement and moving guys around and stuff like that. But maybe there's a situation where they do that at least for a little bit and try to ease Alvarez back in. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, based off of the production, which I'm sure this is where this conversation is going to end, based off of the production of some of the other guys that are rotating in and being on the bench, I guess 3 catchers wouldn't be that bad of a
That's what I was alluding to. If the guys aren't going to hit and Jeff McNeil comes back, you could do worse than easing certain guys back in. Before we get into that conversation, I want to just put the pitching stuff to bed. Before we talk about Sean Manaea, we get bad news on him. I'm going to bring up this comment from Armand, which is just a fact from Spot Track. Sandy Alcantara is under control till 2026. He has the option for the following year, which is 2027. He'll make $17.3 million this year and in 26. And then the club option, if picked up, jumps up to $21 million. If Sandy Alcantara's healthy, that is a bargain. I think he signed a 5-year, $55 million extension at one point, which is what this, the end of the last couple of years here, that Armand has pointed out, that's that contract. So it was a very team friendly deal. What I want to ask you about very quickly is just your thoughts on the Mets players being so open, talking about bringing Sandy Alcantara to their team in a trade on April 1st. Like, that was very odd.
I think it's odd. I think it's odd because you don't really see even how how journalists are today, or reporters are today, straight up asking players if they would want someone to be traded to their team. And furthermore, to your point, you don't really see players actually respond in a way where it's like, oh yeah, I would love to have this guy, and then go a little bit more in depth on it. Like Soto went in depth on it. Maybe others didn't go as in depth as he did, but it was odd. But I hate, again, I hate to be the guy that puts people down, but all in all, Sandy Alcantara is phenomenal. Sandy Alcantara is going to get traded at this deadline, no doubt in my mind. But I hate to break it to you, it's not going to be to the New York Mets. I hate to say it because I would love to have him, but when I see those numbers, and I appreciate it, Armand, as I always do, brother, for the stats and the info. When I see numbers like that, I automatically, this is always my go-to, but even more so now, Sandy Alcantara is going to be a Baltimore Oriole. And I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with that because he has control, and I think and he's cheap. That's why he's going to be an Oriole. He has control and he's cheap, and they'll finally say, we're going to part with prospects because this is a guy that we can have for a longer period of time. So we will give up the prospects. And just saying, Kobe Mayo had his back and forth with management over being sent down. Big time hitting prospect. Marlins could use some hitters. Guy needs a place to play, not getting playing time in Baltimore. I think that there is a way that this ends up working. That's just me. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But I don't like the fact that Mets fans are already jumping ahead and thinking that this can happen when I know damn sure that there are other teams that are going to be in the hunt that have a lot more to offer, and they can land the guy that I know that the Marlins would end up taking as opposed to keeping him in the division.
Quick question without getting in the weeds on this.
Yeah.
Is there, knowing the contract, knowing that you have him for 2.5 years, basically, if you're the Mets, you pick up that option easily. Is there a player in the Mets system that you would not trade for Sandy Alcantara? Because I know we've been like, well, you can't give up pitching for rentals, but he's not a rental. You know what I mean? So like, you've got your Sproats, you've got your Tongs, and these people that you'd like to hang on to, obviously. But is there a player that you would not trade for Sandy Alcantara, or more than one?
For me, I stick to this, and I know that Alcantara is special, but I stick to this and I say you have to build pitching. You have to be sustainable with pitching from within. So I honestly have a very hard time giving away Sproat or Tong. Anybody else in this system, anybody, I'm willing to talk on. Those two, I have a very hard time doing it, even with the control, even at the, because he's 29, even at the age, like I still have a hard time, because if you give things like that up, you're asking for trouble because you're spending more money. And I know money's not an issue, but again, you're trying to get better. You're just going to end up spending more money on Frankie Montas types because you have nobody to call up. And
would you give up one of them?
Short-sighted.
Would you give up one of them? Only one. The Marlins call you and they say, we want Tong and then the other, it's, it's Jet Williams. It's whatever. It's hitting prospects. Only position player. You only have to give up one of Sproat or Tong, and let's say 3 other prospects, but they're not pitchers. So you're not giving up both. You're also not giving up, Christian Scott. You're not giving up Nolan McLean. You're not even giving up Blade Tidwell. You have these guys kind of waiting. Would you give up one of them? One of Sproat or Tong?
I think if it's like, you have to make a decision, I would say probably I'd give up Tong, even though I really don't want to. I like him a lot. I think he can really help this team. I think he's going to really shoot up the system in
Mhm.
overall baseball, not just the Mets. I've said that multiple times on the show. I really think that's going to happen. So giving a guy like that up sucks. But if you're saying it's only one, then I'm more inclined to do that. But again, if other people are really going to swing big on a player like that, I don't think the Mets have the horses. I don't.
Yeah, I mean that's what Armand says. Mets won't get Sandy because other teams have better quality prospects. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not really a conversation for now. I just wanted to have it because
I get it.
it was topical to a reporter asking the Mets and certain Mets players being very open about it. Real quickly, bad news on Sean Manaea. He's going to be on the IL longer. Has a setback, gets a PRP injection. We were talking last week and the week before. Seemed like he was on the mend. Seemed like the Mets got it right. Diagnosed it quick, rested him early. He was going to be fine. He was going to be back maybe before the month of April was over. That's not going to happen now. It seems like we're looking at late May. Him and Montas now kind of on a similar trajectory where, if they're back by June 1, both of them, I think you sign for that right now. So knowing that they have to stretch out as starting pitchers, knowing that you don't want to get another setback. Your thoughts on this? Obviously, Kodai Senga pitching great. Or showing great stuff.
Showing great stuff, yeah.
Showing great stuff. I don't know that he pitched great. Semantics. Kodai Senga being Kodai Senga was really important, and the Mets' overall pitching being really, really good thus far helps kind of stem that tide. But it sucks. I mean, we thought we were getting Manaea back, and now, like I said, I think we would both sign for June 1 to get back Montas and Manaea.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, no one wanted to hear setback. And look, this does echo what I said in the offseason, what I feared the most when it came to Manaea. And I had mentioned that look, I don't know how this guy's body's going to hold up after going through as many innings as he did. He put his arm on the line, essentially. We watch how it, eventually came crashing down in that Dodger game, but he gave everything to that, but we had nothing left. And I was curious on how his body in general was going to respond. And when you see what happened in the spring, and then of course this setback happens, I'm curious as to, how long this is truly going to be. We hear another 2 weeks. Well, we'll see and we'll reevaluate and stuff like that. But it sucks because I still think their plan is to have a 6-man. And not being able to do that a little bit earlier kind of cuts into whether it's innings, times through the rotation, tiring guys out, which can then lead to potential bullpen fatigue if guys can't handle it as starters. Like there's a lot of things that are turning on said wheel, which is why I'm upset about it. But ultimately, I want to see the guy back because I love the vibe that he brings and the stuff that he brings on the mound. And I think it's needed for this team. But to your point, everything looks great so far. How far that's going to go is the question. Is this going to be something that's fleeting, or is this going to be something that is, that carries a little bit more weight? I think, for me at least, the sooner you get back a Sean Manaea and you can go to a 6-man, I think it's going to benefit everybody involved. It sucks that this happened. Obliques are very tricky. They're always a pain in the ass. That's why I don't even like being told a number. I feel like a number given to us, 2 weeks or whatever, then we'll reevaluate. It's like I hate that only because something can it's like the slightest of tweaks, and then it's another 2 weeks, and then it pisses more people off. It's like, just understand, Mets fans, when it comes to an injury like this, there are a lot of back and forth setbacks, issues that happen because they're so tricky.
Well, look at Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil had a minor oblique strain. There was a chance that Jeff McNeil would have, when it first happened, they were talking maybe he'll miss 5-6 games of the regular season. So, hey, guess what? Jeff McNeil's not playing at the home opener. That would be the 7th game of the season, so even that, and there's not been a true setback, but it's just taking longer than they would have expected otherwise. So obliques are tricky. I will bring this one up from Carlos Ramos. There's a lot of good stuff here today. I was going to make this point actually, and I'll give him credit for it. The one thing I'll take out is positive. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a positive, but he says, I look at this as a positive. To be honest, Manaea was running on empty in the NLCS. Later start means he will be fresh in October. There is that, again, positive, not so much. I will say silver lining of the guy pitches the most innings he's ever pitched and the most innings he's pitched in like 4 years last year. Starting him later is not the worst thing in the world, but
No.
starting him later because of injury, I can't say that's a positive. I will just say it's a silver lining at best.
I agree. Silver lining at best. And yeah, I agree. Like everything I just said before, like he did burn out. So a later start does help. But to everything I just said before, also, later start means you're going more times through the rotation as a 5-man. When you plan for a 6, you're maybe pushing guys a little bit further, which I then say could trickle down to the bullpen, which then causes issues, which leads to potential burnout, which we don't want to see, which we saw last year. So like there's a lot going here. Like I agree. The later start is the silver lining because he can go further. Same thing with a Montas, can help you on the back end. It's just when exactly will that start happen? Because some damage could be done already. You don't know. And I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just looking at this, truthfully about what I honestly feel that the Mets were trying to accomplish when they set up the pitching as they did, to be a 6-man, to have starters in the pen, like doing all the stuff what we mentioned in the first half of the show, to have guys that can go multiple innings. It's like it's about protecting everyone because pitching is so volatile. That's really what it comes down to.
Pull up this comment from Jeff Cohen, who says, "Night all. I'll catch the rest of the show tomorrow." It is getting late, so we don't want to go too much longer. But you can, like Jeff, catch the rest of the show tomorrow on replay on this YouTube channel, or you can listen to the rest of it wherever it is you get your podcast. Ibby, really quick, couple things. Don't want to end on a negative, but we have to talk about it. I'll use this post from Odd Villain first. Vientos has terrible body language, not very swaggy. I'll leave the rest of it out. Vientos has not looked great. I'm not folding up shop on Vientos. I'll say what I said about him. What I said about the entire lineup discussion. It's too early. I'm not worried. But Vientos certainly has not played like a confident player in the Marlins series. He played very good in the Houston Astros series for the most part. I know the hits weren't there, but he was hitting the ball hard. Seemed like he got to Miami. I know he's from Miami, like from South Florida. Grew up there at least. Born in Connecticut, moved to South Florida when he was really young. So maybe it was just some pressure aspects. Maybe it's that intangible stuff that we don't really see as far as, fans. Maybe he had a lot of stuff going on with family being there, things like that. But he certainly did not play up to his ability. Most notably today, a couple of really bonehead plays in the field, looked out of sorts in the batter's box. He looks like the guy who would benefit not only from the day off tomorrow, but maybe a day off where the Mets are playing and he could just kind of sit on the bench and just watch the game for a minute and just reset his head. That's what I will say. I'm not worried, but he seems like a guy who might need just a mental break.
I mean, what is he? He's 2 for his last 25 or something like that. And it's
he has 2 hits on the year. So he's 2 for whatever.
Yeah. I think I want to say it's 25 or 26. Look, it's been ugly to start. But you have to expect something like that coming into the sophomore year. More tape on you, how guys choose to attack you. They're not going to feed you the fastballs as often as they did because they know that's where you do the most damage. You're going to see a lot of breaking stuff. But like we saw last year, Mark did a fantastic job of looking at the tape, readjusting, and then, finding success and then, building on success moving forward. It sucks that when you're a young player like this and you had success where you think that they finally might have gotten to you, you kind of get in your own way a little bit. I think that's what's going on right now. I think between, the lack of success at the plate, the running aspect, which was handled, and I'm not worried about the whole lack of running thing. That's just a one-time thing. I don't care about that too much. But I think all of it is just, I think it's all mental right now. I think he's all in his head. I agree that everything is going to find a way to correct itself. But yeah, I agree with you. If it ends up being, a game where he sits, that could be, the elixir that he needs to get things right. But I'm not all that worried about him because I trust the talent here. You have to also understand what type of bat he is. He's a power bat. Okay. He's a power hitter. He's not a guy you're looking to be, he's not going to be a guy that's going to be on base all that often. He's going to be streaky. He's going to have his strikeouts. It's about the quality of contact that he makes when the ball's in the zone. He's supposed to do damage. Like that's what the whole thing is. And if he happens to do that, 35 times in the season, you are ecstatic. But at the same time, understand that he is someone that is going to strike out a lot as well and not put the ball in play. But again, things like this are a lot more centralized and focused on right now because nobody's hitting. Okay, so you're going to pick on everybody. Everybody is going to get picked on right now because nobody's hitting. If everyone was hitting except him, it'd be a little bit more on the back burner, not noticed as much. Some will talk about it, but they'll say, he'll be fine. Everyone else is chugging along. He'll eventually find his groove. But because nobody's hitting, it's a lot more focused in on right now. I'm not too worried about it. Maybe a day off can help him recalibrate, like you said. But other than that, not too worried about Mark.
Yeah, I'm not worried either. Again, I think it's too early to be worried about anything. Anything that even if you're the Atlanta Braves, I know we talked about it, in the open, you can't be worried about this. It's April 2nd, guys. Like this season is in its infancy. So you can't worry about any of these things, especially when guys have any kind of reputation, any kind of back of the baseball card. Now, granted, Vientos doesn't have much, but he did what he did last year. I think what he did was duplicatable. I think it's something he can do again. I think he is that type of ball player. I think it's fine. Carlos saying, I agree 100%, John. He needs a mental break, just catch his breath. He looked all right in Houston, but looks kind of lost in Miami. It's all in his head. And Armand saying, that means Beatty at third if you give Vientos a mental break, which, look, yeah, I know, but
if it's a sacrifice if it's a sacrifice for a game to get Vientos right, come on, you do that.
And that brings me to the next comment, probably the last thing that we'll talk about on this show as we get out of here a little bit earlier. Daniel Cap saying, I have checked out for Beatty. How much more do we have to see? Ibby, you and I differ on Beatty, obviously. We always have. You also, I will troll to the negative. You like to troll to the positive, especially like in our Mets content creator group. I will needle a little bit more than I need to, and you defend him a little bit more than you need to. But realistically speaking, I want to give you the first word on this.
Sure.
Beatty has not looked good.
No,
as bad as everybody has looked offensively, again, he has nothing to fall back on at all. This is a guy who's a career 213 hitter. He's a negative WAR player. He's a 31% below league average in terms of OPS plus for his career. This guy has nothing to lean on. Vientos has a good, whatever it was, 4.5 months. Beatty has negative to lean on. So where's your concern? This is where I think worrying or being concerned is not an over-exaggeration because there is no track record. So as somebody who likes him better than me, where is your worry level for Beatty?
I would say, and I said this weeks ago now, where I said that everything he's doing during the spring is great, but I said once the lights go on, Brett, you got to be able to perform, and if you don't, it's going to get even brighter and brighter because people see what you're doing in the spring, and they're going to expect you to try and replicate that. And when you don't, your feet are really to the fire then, because if you don't do anything, it's going to be curtains, and that's going to be it. And I said, Brett, and I can pull up the short if you want me to. I said, Brett, this is your last chance. Like, this is it. You have to be able to go out there and succeed and do something well. And he hasn't. Like, all in all, still pound the ball into the ground. Still, I'm not going to focus on the defense right now. I'm going to focus more at the plate. But the defense itself has been, it's been whatever. Like, it's a guy who's a third baseman, really, that's playing second base. It's not athletic enough. It's different than obviously what you see from an Acuna. So it's not something that anyone can really pull a positive from, and I can't because I haven't seen much of a positive outside of that one double that he hit. Like, outside of that, it's been a lot of the same.
Not to be a dick, not trolling. I know I sent it as a troll in the on Twitter, but he hit that double in a blowout game against the guy who's a AAA pitcher. Let's call it what it is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't hit it off Alcantara. He hit it off of a guy who doesn't have a major league resume either. A guy who could easily be in AAA, and probably if the Mets are playing a better team, he is in AAA. So, it's not to lay it on him, but like, his one hit is against the guy who he should be able to handle. And the thing that's most concerning for me is twofold. One, it's the process. He's doing the same things. He's not getting out in a lot of hard luck. I know he's hit some hard balls, but he's hitting the ball too much on the ground. And even when people were talking about Beatty to the positive, they say he hits the ball hard, but he hits the ball hard on the ground too much. And he's doing that too. He's making a lot of early contact, a lot of weak contact. When he hits it hard on the ground. So he's doing the same things that he's always done. And now he's 25 years old. And again, this is
go
not
time.
The Mets are not hanging on to the last bastion of hope here. I don't know what Acuna is, but Acuna can play the position. I don't know what Mauricio is, but once his legs are under him, he can play second base. I don't know what Jet Williams is, but once he gets a little bit more reps after the last year, he can play second base. And that's why I can't leave the defense out of it, because yes, he's made some plays. Beatty is a good athlete, but if the Mets have a healthy Alvarez in the lineup, wouldn't you rather just see Acuna playing second base and batting ninth than Brett Beatty trying to be a second baseman?
I think you would. And the only way that you wouldn't see that is what I had said a couple of weeks ago. And that was, you are playing for your bat, because your bat is supposed to play better than what Acuna's is supposed to play as. And if you're not going to hit the way that you've shown that you can during the spring, if you're not going to hit like that, you're not going to be in the lineup, because that's the only reason a David Stearns run team would have someone like you playing second base, is because you're hitting enough to outshine, if you will, the burden that you're causing as a defender. And if you're not going to hit, you're not providing anything then. So it's like there's nothing to really pull here. I'm not happy at all from what I've seen. And he's continuously going to work himself further and further down the trust of anyone within this organization. And I just think that when I watch him at the plate, I always watch guys when they're in the box. I've talked about this, since we started the show. I don't see a guy that has a plan in the box, and I don't see a guy that has much confidence in the box. Like, look, you watch guys like Soto and Lindor, specifically Soto, and you can see how he takes in every pitch, what his plan of attack is, where he's probably looking to put the ball. Like, there's always something the guy's always thinking. Now, look, that's an all-world hitter. It's a Hall of Fame player.
He's only like 8 months older than Brett Beatty, though.
Right. Right. I get it. Like, he's a completely different animal. But the point is, I'm watching a Beatty get up there, and I don't see any plan of attack. I'm watching a guy look very in between on swings, very in between, even when he's watching pitches go by him. Like, it's not anything that I'm liking, in general, from the entire approach. So it's not pretty. I don't like it. I think you are at this point going to see more of Acuna, as you should. And obviously, if Jeff McNeil gets healthy, you're going to see Jeff being put right back into the lineup without even thinking, because neither one of the players is doing anything to really separate in this sense. So all in all, second base has kind of been a hole to this point, because the offense is just not there and the defense has been shoddy.
Yeah, look, and when it comes to Beatty, the last thing I'll say on this with regards to Acuna, I would start Acuna 5 out of these next 6 games. I would. I don't know if the Mets are going to do that. That's what I would do. I tweeted this out in reaction to Ryan Finkelstein over at Locked On Mets, talking about, the uneven start that both guys have had. And this is true. Like, you're right. Beatty is uncomfortable. He looks uncomfortable. He looks unconfident. And say what you want about Acuna. I don't know what Acuna is going to be, but he carries himself, for better or for worse, like a guy who's already a star. And sometimes faking it till you make it is the way to go. Success builds confidence, but confidence can build success. And I think at least with Acuna, Carson, if he's still in the comments, is going to call it aura, and it's true. But at least with Acuna, he has it factor. He has that je ne sais quoi. He has that something. And also, by the way, he's going to play elite defense at second base, and he gives you a speed element that Beatty can't give you. And quite frankly, nobody else really on the team gives you, not to that level. Maybe Jose Siri, but he's not going to play as 100% of the time either. So I just think for me, over the next 6 games of the homestand, I would play Acuna more. I don't know if you disagree with that, but I would give him 5 out of the 6 games. If you want to say, 4 out of the 6 or whatever, fine. But I would give Acuna, after what I saw today from Beatty, I would give Acuna the edge. I would.
I feel like that's the approach that they should take, but I don't know if they're going to, mainly because as I said before, I thought that they were going to give Brett as much run as they possibly can to just finally say, we tried, and then they're going to wash their hands. That's the only way I can look at it and say that they might play him more often than they should. But I don't disagree with you at all, where it's like, at this point, take the defense and see if Acuna can provide some better offense and put some better swings on the ball, because it's not there with Brett.
And honestly, not for nothing, but if your team, I know this feels counterintuitive, but if your team is pitching well and struggling to score runs, give me the defensive player.
Yeah,
tighten up the defense. After what I saw today, tighten up the defense. Carson is still here. Said, just say it, John. No aura. And Odd Villain put it another way. He said, no yeet. So,
yeet.
Last question, Ibby. We'll get out of here. We'll definitely be done by an hour and a half. This is just tangential to what we're talking about. Master Flip, first of all, saying, Brett Beatty, my goat. Just kidding. Blast him to the moon. And then Carson saying, he's only 34 years old. Don't give up on Beatty poo. Okay. MEZBX says, do we see Jet Williams sooner with how center field and second base are producing? So I think it's a good question. I think the short answer is no, because Jet Williams is a big time prospect.
Still has a lot to prove.
He has a lot to prove. He started the season in Double-A, right?
Double-A, yeah.
Double-A to the Rumble Ponies. Yeah. So he's got a lot to prove. I don't think we see him sooner. I think it depends on Jet. I think obviously McNeil comes back. He's your second baseman. And it's clear that Ronnie Mauricio is and should be ahead of Jet Williams on the depth chart, because he's already been to the major leagues and he's already shown some stuff, albeit in a small sample size. The important part here for me is the acknowledgement by the Mets organization that Jet Williams is going to get, quote, a lot of time playing center field. So that's the interesting one for me. I think the Mets, rightfully so, know that both of their center field options just are what they are. And I think it's pretty good, but they're going to leave a lot to be desired offensively, especially over long stretches. I know Tyrone Taylor had a terrible game in defense with regards to that one kind of miscue, and Siri is maybe the best pure defender in center field in the sport. But I think it's very telling that the Mets are saying, okay, Jet, go back to Double-A, play center field mostly.
I think that, number one, Jet has to be healthy. Number two, he's got to prove that he is, proper in playing center field specifically. I know he can play second base. I know he can play shortstop. He's not going to be asked to play shortstop up here. Second base is where he's going to be asked to play. But if they want to give him that run in center, look, I know there's always the jokes about his height, but I can't run away from the fact that, when you're 5'6", 5'7", on a good day, having that run around in center field is not ideal when the average size of an outfielder is upwards of, like, if you're 5'10", you're almost considered short in the outfield in Major League Baseball. So you're up against the 8 ball there as it is. So I'm not denying the fact that the guy's talented. I'm not denying the fact that the guy is an athlete, because I've defended the guy before. I think he could be a solid hitter. But I am curious if him playing in center field is the right move. I still think that his future is the second baseman. I don't know if having him in center is the right thing, but at the same time, you play the best players. And, if we're going to go back to the simplest of takes, to go all the way back to Little League, if you can hit, they'll find a place to play you. And if you could be somewhat decent in center field and they want the production, they're going to put you out there. Like, it's as simple as that. So I don't think it's something that I'm really focused on right now. mainly because he still has a lot to prove at AA. Get the full season, or get a strong 2 to 3 months in to see what you have, and then assess. If you're making enough noise and there's still a lot of question marks, whether at second base or center field up here, then it's something you can think about. But until that happens, and that's a lot that needs to happen altogether, I don't think it's a conversation that's going to be happening too soon.
Odd Villain saying having Chucky in center field is not wavy. Chucky, of course, referring to the villain Chucky in the movie Child's Play, and then all of the subsequent sequels and all that stuff. Hilarious. I will add this, Ibby, and then we can get out of here. I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to sort of contradict myself for a moment, so just hang on. I think you're right in that it's going to take a while, and Jet has things to do on his own end before that's ever even a conversation for a month, 2 months, 3 months, hell, whatever. But I think that right now, the Mets are looking at it and they say between Acuna, Mauricio, maybe Beatty, and McNeil, they think that they can probably cover second base for the rest of the year. So similar to what I said about Vientos at the end of spring training last year, where I said, go down to AAA, play third base, get as good as you can because your path is going to be playing third base. I think the Mets are looking at this and saying, Jet, play center field, because in 2025, your path to the big leagues is probably playing center field. Now, the way I'll contradict myself is Vientos played third base, played it adequately, got better today notwithstanding, and has kind of entrenched himself as a potential option going forward at third base. I don't think that would be the case for Jet Williams. I think with Jet Williams, you're looking at maybe you make it to the bigs, maybe you play center field for a couple months, and then we move you back to the middle infield, if you hit and everything for the following season, kind of like what the Nats did with Trey Turner and what you see with some infielders. Hey, you're athletic, go play center field. We'll figure out the rest later. I think that's kind of where the Mets are with Jet Williams. And again, he has so much that he has to do, but I could see that playing out where it's like, man, it's June. The Mets need a center fielder that can hit. And maybe we roll the Jets tearing it up in AAA now. We got to give him some burn because what we have is not working.
And I think that it's possible, but this is also the other point that I've forgotten. Thank you, Charlie, for bringing this up. And that's you need the strong center fielder to offset the deficiencies of Soto in right field. And I think that's why everyone loved the signing of Siri, as did I, because of what he can cover in the outfield and what he covers going towards right field. And I just think that assuming that Jet Williams, who is a middle infielder going out to center, I know guys are athletes, but not everybody is Mookie Betts. So I just think that it's a tough ask, and it's one that I would have to see really play out, in the minors to the point where it's like, okay, I can trust this guy. And I think that that's a big ask, mainly because I think his main focus towards getting to the bigs is proving that he can be a consistent hitter and being a guy that can hit, 95, 96, 97 plus on a consistent basis. And I think asking him to do all these things is almost a recipe for disaster, or it's almost
fair.
Or it's going to be too much too soon, and it's going to end up being a failure. So that's why I still think that it's second base, but I understand why they want to try him in center. There's nothing wrong with trying, but I still think that the future's at second.
It's just a shame that the Mets have three guys for one spot, theoretically, with Jet, Acuna, and Mauricio. And Acuna, who is the biggest of them by far, seems to be the least suited to play the outfield because athletically and physically, he would be the best option to play center field, if that makes sense. Right. He's got the height. He's got the arm. He's got, Mauricio doesn't feel like a second baseman. Mauricio feels like, I told you, I think he's a poor man. He's a poor man's Ellie De La Cruz. He's a poor man's, O'Neal Cruz. He's big. He's athletic. He's fast. He's long. I think that's the kind of guy that you could put out in center field, but it's clear that he didn't really take to the outfield in left field. So he's not going to play center field. And It's just a shame because he has the physical profile to fit that. Anyway, Ibby, went a little bit longer than we wanted to, but still got done sooner than we would have had we started, on time and everything like that. So anything we didn't get to that you want to say real quick? If not, we can get out of here and we could do our thing next week in our regular scheduled time, hopefully.
The only thing I got to say is hopefully that this team can wake up a little bit more, provide a little bit more consistency on offense for this homestand. I will be there on Sunday, April 6th. I will be there. So if anyone is there, shout out to all of you. Come say hi, and hopefully we can get away with some W's against the Jays, and then of course it's the Marlins, right? The Marlins.
Yeah, it's the Jays and then the
it's
Marlins.
the Marlins coming back in.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully the offense gets moving. Let's go Mets. If you're there on Sunday, come say hi. I'm relatively nice. So I'll see you then.
I won't be there. Carson's going to be there on Sunday.
Carson, I might have to fight you. I don't know.
You guys are going to get in. You guys are going to get into a fight about Brett Beatty. I won't be there because I live like 2,700 miles away, but
excuses.
I will, if you message me, I will send you Ibby's personal cell phone number and home address to make sure that you guys can link up. You know, maybe you can carpool, maybe Ibby can rent like a party bus. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to dox Ibby. That's insane.
That's only for Carson, not for me.
Carson's the one who gets doxed. I probably won't be at a game until honestly the Mets come to Los Angeles. I had thought about maybe going up to Sacramento. The Mets are going to Sacramento on the next road trip to play the A's in that disgrace of a ballpark, minor league ballpark. But I thought, hey, that could be fun. But then I realized that Sacramento is like a 5-hour drive from LA.
Gross.
Yeah. And then then I have to stay overnight. So that's like a whole thing. Or I have to do a 10-hour round trip to watch the Mets play in a minor league ballpark. It just didn't feel conducive to something I wanted to do. And honestly, oddly enough, the plane tickets are pricey too. It's like $200 round trip just to go up to Sacramento. So I was like, I'm not doing any of that. So anyway, seems like I won't be going until the Mets come to Southern California, which they will in a couple months. And then, they'll hit the usual rotation and, do LA and San Diego and all that fun stuff. But
the nights I don't sleep. I hate those trips.
Honestly, I don't like them either. I like when the games start at like 4 and then they're over at 7. When they start at 7, I'm like, that's insane. That's gross. Anyway, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for sticking out with us. Over 200 folks here in the live show, which is a lot to ask because we started late. We're ending late on the East Coast. You watched a horrific Mets game that ended well, but was just an absolute slog to get through 4 hours and some change. So we appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you turn your notifications on. Ibby and I will be back with you next Wednesday. I think in our regularly scheduled time. We'll find out. I know the Mets are playing a day game on Wednesday again, but we'll sort through all that next week.
We'll see.
And make sure you're tuning into the Til Mets Morning Minute, which is something that we're doing. We're going to try to do. I'm going to try to do it, Ibby, after every game for the entire season. So when there isn't a day, when there's not a game, there'll obviously be the lack thereof. I'm not going to preview games and do it every day. But when there is a game the night before, there will be a Til Mets Morning Minute the day after, and try to do that all season long. Anyway, I'm John. That's Ibby. This is Til Mets Do Us Part. We had a lot of fun. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.